Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to another installment in the Dragon Hoard series. A series of videos where I flip through all of the Dragon magazines that I have in my collection. And today we are taking a look at issue number 283 from May of 2001. And this one's going to have a heavy focus on clerics. We've got the clerics and deities, smite evil, 6 legendary pantheons, 4 diabolical villains, 5 new classes for clerics, that should be interesting, some Forgotten Realms fiction, designing your own deities, and learn to say yes to your DM, negotiating the game, not quite sure what that is, and Swords in Cinema, a gamer's ultimate guide. First things first, man, this cover, I gotta say, like, this guy does not look like the most mentally stable cleric there. I don't know, there's just something about that expression that's just really off-putting. But let's just go ahead and get right into this, shall we? So right off the bat, we got, oh boy. So we got Baldur's Gate 2, an advertisement for that, and you can get $10 cash back by mail when you buy the Dungeons & Dragons Platinum Series DVD and Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Am, or Baldur's Gate 2, The Throne of Ball. So this is the Throne of Ball. I think that was the expansion, actually. But yeah, there we got the D&D movie on DVD. I actually originally got it for Christmas, I think in 2001. Actually, I think it was 2001 even. May have been 2000, but I actually ended up getting it on VHS. It was a Christmas gift from my aunt. Here we got the cover art reproduced, and again, we're just going to move right on. We've got some an advertisement for 7th edition of Magic the Gathering. Got the Sarah Angel art there. It's pretty cool. I actually kind of like the rainbow style holographics that they used to do. Anyway, cool stuff. We've got the Ring of 5 Dragons. So I guess that must be a novel series, yeah. Oh, this is actually an excerpt from the novel. So we're just gonna skip past that. I'm not getting into reading fiction in this particular video series. It's just not really my thing. It's hard enough to be able to read this stuff around a tripod with it kind of right in my way. So we're gonna skip the fiction stuff for now. Okay, we got what was it, Mark? So this profile on one of the staff members. Here we've got the preview catalog, or not really catalog, but the previews for May 2001. And again, we're still kind of not at the point where I was really collecting a lot of 3rd edition stuff. That would kind of come in 2002 when I really started to get into that. So we're still going to be missing a lot of the stuff, but we'll see if what we have here. So we have Defenders of the Faith. So that was the soft-covered splat book that was all like options for clerics and paladins, giving you some like new prestige classes, some feats, some equipment, stuff like that. And then we've got the Temple of Elemental Evil novel. We also have some previews for the next couple of months. We've got in June we have the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, which if I'm pretty sure I have the June 2001 issue. If I do, then I will do a separate video just flipping through the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. I do have the Pool of Radiance Attack on Mithranor adventure, so we're actually starting to get into some of the stuff that I have, but we're still going to be a little ways away from me being able to do a lot of like companion videos for the previews. But like I said, I do have the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, so we will be able to take a look at that. Some Forgotten Realms maps. Again, the campaign setting is coming out a month after this issue, so they're starting to kind of hype that up a little bit. Another advertisement for Warlord. I really wish I had like a deck or two of that to actually show how it was good. It was a really fun game. All right, so do-it-yourself deities. I don't know if we're going to go through this one too much, but just some things to consider. So how many deities for your campaign setting, I guess, there's how many deities are there? Are they of every alignment? Are there deities for different races? Do the deities areas of influence overlap? So just some of that stuff to kind of keep in mind. And then you've got some examples of different pantheons. These would actually be redone or reprinted in the Deities and Demigods for 3rd edition, which came out a little bit later on. But it's still kind of cool to see examples of like real world religious pantheons as sort of an example for what you could consider if you were designing your own. Okay, so we got the Champions of Virtue. So these are several different prestige classes for the Cleric class. So we got the Shining Blade of Heronius, the Radiant Servant of Pelor, the Fleet Runner of Elona, that was like the goddess of nature. We've got the Mighty Contender of Hoard, and I guess that, did I miss one? I thought there were supposed to be 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe there's another one later, right? Because it said 5, didn't it? And there might be another one a little bit later. So I'm not going to go through like every single feature that they get, but we'll take a look at the requirements for the different prestige classes and at least some of their key things, because abilities like Detect Evil and Smite Evil, they work exactly the same way as like the Paladin abilities do, so I'm not really going to worry about going into that. But for requirements, we actually have a base attack bonus of +7, which for a cleric was a little bit harder to get. So most prestige classes were ones that you could qualify for, usually around like 6th level, 6th or 7th. So a base attack bonus of +7 is actually pretty fairly high. And I don't think the cleric got +7 until like maybe like 9th or 10th level. They only got up to +15 total by the time they reached 20th level. So this was actually a pretty late in your progression prestige class, so that's kind of interesting. You have to have knowledge 7 ranks in knowledge religion, which a cleric could get by let's see, by 4th level, because your the number of ranks you could put into a class skill was equal to, the maximum number was 3 plus your level. And of course the ability to cast divine spells. So not too much there. I mean, you have to worship Heronius obviously and have the same alignment as Heronius. But let's take a look at some of the more interesting abilities that they get. So we do have the Shock Blade and the Holy Blade. So those are the 2 things that we're going to be wanting to take a look at. Also interesting though is that the spells per day, so they're increased their spellcasting abilities for a lot of prestige classes that were designed for like clerics and wizards. Most of them would give you +1 of your existing spellcasting class, like every single level. There might be like a 1 level gap at like 1st level the prestige class where maybe you didn't get a bonus to your spellcasting. So that would give you the spell slots and the spells per day, like spells known of like whatever the class would be. So if you were, for example, a 5th level cleric and you took a prestige class that gave you +1 to your existing class, you would get the spell casting progression as if you were a 6th level cleric. So this one, you only get it every other level. So every even number level is where you get the +1 increase to your spell casting, which is kind of interesting. So let's see what we get for the Holy Blade and Shock Blade. So the Shock Blade, once per day, is a standard action. A Shining Blade of Heronius can use a slashing or piercing weapon he is holding to become a shock weapon, dealing an extra 1d6 points of electricity damage on a hit. The weapon is enhanced this way for up to a number of rounds equal to their charisma bonus, if any. But only so long as the Shining Blade is holding the weapon. If he is disarmed or gives the weapon to another character, the effect ends. Okay, and then Holy Blade is basically the same thing, but you'd see it can be used twice per day when starting off. And the ability, you can choose to make the weapon either a shock weapon, dealing +1d6 damage, or a holy weapon, dealing 2d6 points of bonus holy damage, good against basically good aligned damage against evil creatures. The weapon enhanced this way for number of rounds equal to the charisma modifier. So basically it just gives them some extra damage that they can do for a few rounds. And I didn't see Radiant Blade on the chart, so I guess I just missed that. But at 9th level, a Shining Blade can bestow three magical enhancements. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I got it. So you can actually, it looks like you can stack them. which is interesting. Or you can split up the D6 maybe. Anyway, so they can either choose to make it a plus 1d6 shock weapon, a plus 2d6 holy weapon, or the brilliant energy weapon. So brilliant energy essentially allowed you to bypass armor, and you would just make your melee attacks as if they were touch. So armor bonuses, shield bonuses, and anything that wasn't like dex, dodge, or deflection bonuses, you would ignore that all. So if you had somebody wearing full plate armor and you attack them with a brilliant energy weapon, you're basically attacking against like an armor class of 10 or 11, or maybe slightly higher if they had magic armor. So that's kind of interesting. And then we got the Celestial Transformation. So at 10th level, the Shining Blade of Heronius actually becomes a celestial creature, taking on a shining metallic appearance and adopting the Celestial Creature template from the Monster Manual. So that's kind of cool. And then we got the Radiant Servant of Pelor. So Pelor was the Greyhawk god of the sun and healing and renewal and all that stuff. So that was pretty much one of the main deities that a lot of people that would play clerics would take, just because it gave you the bonus to like healing spells. You treat your class level as if it was one higher when using healing spells, if you were a worshiper of Pelor. So we do have the abilities of Radiance, Turn Undead, extra Greater Turning, and I think Greater Turning and stuff like that's just from the player's handbook. We have Empower Healing and Divine Health, Aura of Warding, Additional Domain, Maximize Healing, Positive Energy Burst, and Supreme Healing. So let's see what we got here. So Radiance, when a Radiant Servant of Pelor casts any spell with the light descriptor, the radius of the illumination is doubled. So that's kind of cool. And then we've got, again, for unique abilities, we have Empower Healing. So it just does the healing spells as if the Empower spell feat was applied to it. Even though it doesn't actually, you don't actually use up the higher level slot. So Empowered is just 1.5 times the amount of healing. So if you did your healing spell and you healed 6 points of damage, for example, then you would actually heal 9 with it. Divine Health, the Radiant Servant of Pelor, who is at least 2nd level, is immune to all diseases, including magical disease like mummy rot. So I think the Paladin had the same kind of ability there. Aura of Warding, which again I think is kind of similar to a Paladin ability. The Radiant Servant and all allies within 10 feet gain a +2 morale bonus to saving throws. And additional domains, so they could choose an additional domain from Pelor's list. And like the list was usually like good, law, and then you had like healing, and I think there was something else. Usually the alignment-based ones weren't, at least in my experiences, weren't used all that often. So the ability to gain, like, you usually had like 2, unique domains and then 2 domains that were directly connected to the deity's alignment. So getting a 3rd domain that you can have access to sounds kind of cool, but realistically, you're usually just choosing one of the alignment ones, and you're not likely to use the abilities or the spells from that very often. Maximize Healing. So at 6th level, they can cast a healing domain spell or a healing spell from the healing domain list, and it's affected as if it was maximized. So essentially, it's just, you don't have to roll, it just does whatever the maximum possible was. And it says that it actually supersedes the Empower Healing ability. So I guess you kind of have to, it's interesting, but, maximize, there is a chance that the Empowered Healing could actually be better. But maximize is guaranteed. So I think that's the trade-off there. Positive Energy Burst. As a standard action, a Radiant Servant who is at least 8th level can channel a Positive Energy Burst that inflicts 1d6 points of damage per class level. So it would have to be at least 8d6 to start. To all undead creatures within 100 feet of the character, they are allowed a reflex saving throw to take half damage. This supernatural ability uses up 2 turning attempts, so that's actually kind of interesting. Instead of it being limited to a number of times per day, they just have it burn away your turn undead ability. And I gotta be honest, I think I would rather use the Positive Energy Burst than turn undead anyway. Because turn undead, they still get like saving throws. And like having the undead run away is okay, I guess, but just being able to deal a whole bunch of damage to them, I think is a lot better. And then Supreme Healing, when a Radiant Servant of Pelor, who's at least 10th level, which is the maximum level, I don't know why they say at least, When they cast a domain spell from the healing domain, that spell is affected as if both through empowered and maximized. So you get them both combined there. So that's pretty cool. Then we got the Fleet Runner of Elona. So this one does not have a base attack requirement for the class. They just have base will save of +3, which I think they get really, really early. The big thing is that they have to have 11 ranks in Knowledge Nature. So they'd have to be at least, again, these are high level requirements for prestige classes, which were a little bit unusual because you'd have to be 8th level to be able to have 11 ranks in something. So that's kind of interesting. So they get some, abilities again, like fast movement. They just move an extra 10 feet per round. Greater mobility. I think that's just a bonus to armor class against attacks of opportunity. Evasion is just a standard, again, ability where on a successful saving throw for reflex, you would take no damage instead of half damage. But in 3rd edition, you still took full damage if you failed the save. You needed the improved evasion, which was a much higher level ability, to be able to take half damage even on a failed save. They do get Leap of the Heart at 3rd level, so that's a new one. Shot on the Run is a feat, but then we have Run Like the Huntress, so seems like an archery-based one. Run Like the Wind, Leopard's Pounce, Swiftness of the Tigress, and Cheetah's Sprint. So let's take a look at this one here as well. So Leap of the Heart at 3rd level or higher, a Fleet Runner's jumping distance, vertical or horizontal, is not limited according to their height. This is an extraordinary ability, so that's probably something that's not going to get used a whole lot. Run Like the Huntress. At 5th level, a Fleet Runner gains supernatural stamina when running. She can run for a number of rounds equal to twice her Constitution score without making any Constitution checks, and she gains a +8 bonus to con checks to continue running after that point. So that's actually pretty good. Then there's Run Like the Wind at 7th level. They can slip between magical spaces as if Dimension Door, so that's kind of neat. Leopard's Pounce at 8th level, a Fleet Runner can make a full attack at the end of a charge. So a lot of creatures had like the Pounce ability, so if they charged or they used like their full movement, they could still make a full attack after that, which is pretty cool. Swiftness of the Tigress. When they reach 9th level, a Fleet Runner can act as if under the effects of a haste spell for a total of 1 round per class level. So that's 9 rounds at that point. And then at 10th level, once per hour, a 10th level Fleet Runner can take a charge action to move 10 times her normal speed. Holy crap. So that would be like 300... Well, actually, that would be like 400 feet. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a supernatural ability. But anyway, then we've got the Mighty Commander of Hoard. So they require a base fortitude save of +6, which again is quite high. Knowledge Religion 9 ranks. They have to have endurance and power attack, and of course the ability to cast divine spells. They get Mighty Endurance and Feat of Strength at 1st level, Surge of Strength at 3rd level. At 5th level, they get a Strength increase. At 7th level, they get a Feat of Power. At 9th, they get a Strength increase again, and then they get Surge of Power at 10th. So it's kind of interesting that, for the most part, prestige classes, because you're giving up your progression in your standard class, and again, as a cleric, you're losing 5 levels of spellcasting progression overall. One of the things that a lot of prestige classes would try to do was have an ability that you gained every level. Sometimes it could just be things that would increase, in the sort of like the gap levels. So if you had something that, for example, gave you the ability to, like for the Arcane Archer, they would gain the ability to enchant arrows as if they were +1 magic arrows. And then at one of those levels where there might be just kind of a void and nothing else, then they might be able to enchant their arrows if it was +2 or +3 and kind of like so on like that. So you're giving up. You're giving up, 4 levels for basically nothing. The only, the trade-off is that the levels that you don't gain a special ability, that's where you get your +1 to existing spellcasting level. But I don't know. I don't know. I guess for clerics, they don't really gain too much, but I don't know. That still seems kind of weak that almost half of the class levels in a prestige class don't really give you anything. And later prestige classes, again, for divine or arcane spellcasters, would pretty much always give you an extra level of spellcasting because they realize that losing several levels of spellcasting progression is just not fun for the class because that is their main ability. But let's see what we've got here. So we have a Mighty Endurance. A Mighty Contender has a special form of damage reduction that allows him to ignore 5 points of subdual damage every time he is dealt subdual damage. This extraordinary ability applies to all effects that deal subdual damage. Not a lot of things did, so it's a neat, flavorful ability, but not one that's going to happen a ton, unless you start giving a lot of your NPCs or monsters or villains like a sap to kind of sock them on the back of the head with. So that one's kind of underwhelming, unfortunately. Feat of Strength, though, when a Mighty Contender performs a Feat of Strength, the power granted by the Strength domain. Oh, okay, he adds his Mighty Contender level to the Cleric levels. Okay. So I think what that does is you add like +1 to your Strength for each class level or something like that. But it only lasts for the 1 round. So that's kind of, again, the trade-off there. But it's again, it's okay. Surge of Strength, Mighty Contender of at least 3rd level who performs a Feat of Strength. The enhancement lasts for 1d4 plus 1 rounds. So that's actually really good. So that makes up for losing some of these abilities, and the Mighty Endurance thing being kind of lackluster. Because, like I said, I'm pretty sure you add +1 to your Strength score for every level, and you're adding your Cleric and your Mighty Contender of Hoard levels together for that. So if you were 12th level, for example, combined between the two classes, then that would be +12 to your Strength for 1d4 plus 1 rounds. That's actually pretty good. I don't think this prestige class got reprinted later on. Like, I know that the Radiant Servant of Palor was absolutely reprinted, but I feel like this one with the Feat of Strength abilities is probably never saw a reprint anywhere. A strength increase, so when they reach 5th level, they gain a +1 bonus to their strength score, which they do gain again a little bit later. Feat of Power once per day is a supernatural ability. When performing a Surge of Strength, the Mighty Contender of 7th level or higher can add 1.5 times his combined Cleric level and Mighty Contender levels to his strength score for the first round of the Surge. And then for the remaining 1d4 rounds, he adds only his level to the strength score. So again, not bad. So if you were, again, using the example, if you were, say, 14th level at this point, that would be +21 to your strength for the first round, and then +14 to your strength for the next. So that's plus like 10 to hit in that first round, and then it goes down to +7, using like the 14th level as an example. Still pretty dang good. So yeah, again, really cool, really powerful ability for like a melee-oriented character. So if you were to take this class, I would highly suggest that you don't multi-class into like fighter or anything else like that. And then you get Surge of Power. So once per day, as a supernatural ability, when performing a Surge of Strength, a 10th level Mighty Contender can add 1.5 times their strength score for the duration of 1d4 plus 1 round. So pretty cool overall. Again, a lot of stuff into that one. A lot of other abilities that were pretty standard and just kind of picked from other classes like the Paladin, the Rogue, things like that. But these are some really interesting classes. I got to be honest, I would have to think twice before allowing the Mighty Contender of Hoard into one of my games, because that gets really really powerful. And like it's only 1d4 plus 1 rounds, right? But in 3rd edition, especially at high levels, a lot of combats usually didn't get to round 4 or 5. So in all likelihood, even though it's only once per day, when it comes to like a boss type of creature, like a fight against a dragon or a beholder or, like an evil warlord kind of thing, that's still going to like absolutely shred them. So yeah, that's a pretty powerful ability. So anyway, let's move on here. Playing the priestly part. Okay, so this is just information on like clerics and priests in your campaigns, because a lot of like the clergy in D&D 3rd edition were not actually like spellcasters at all. They were just simply, they would have had like the expert NPC class with a focus on things like, obviously like knowledge religion and maybe something like the heal skill or stuff like that. So anyway, we're kind of skim past that one. We've got realistic religion, so myth making with universal archetypes. So we're going to skim past this one, I think. But it just gives you things like the trickster gods, the destroyer gods, the sun god, which I mentioned, like Pelor was one of those, or Lathander in Forgotten Realms, god of war and stuff like that. So yeah, you got sort of those basic archetypes. And then advertisement for the Kingdoms of Kalamar campaign setting, which I do own. I should actually do that in a video at some point. Okay, so, all right. So I was hoping that, okay, yeah, so this is just sort of like a ranking video of different, like, magic weapons. I was kind of hoping it was going to have, like, the actual abilities, like, to actually make them magic weapons for your D&D game, but unfortunately we don't have that here. So we're going to, like I said, we're just going to keep going. We do have the instant dungeon tiles. So again, these were really cool, but they are held in place by a glue strip. So a glue strip that's been sitting there for 21 years, nearly 22 years at the time I'm recording this. So I'm not even going to bother touching that. It's going to wreck everything. Later on, when they would start including stuff like this, they would still sometimes use the glue strip, but a lot of times what they would start doing was just having it in like a cellophane bag that was sealed up, and then like the map would just be included inside of that. But yeah. Then we got Children of the Souls. I think this is the fiction stuff for the Forgotten Realms. So again, we're just not going to go into the fiction too much here. Another advertisement for some D&D miniatures, not to be confused with the 2003 D&D miniatures line of plastic pre-painted figures. These would have been pewter figures that you would have to assemble and paint yourself. Okay, here's the other prestige class. So here you see an example of what most prestige classes would try to do in 3rd edition, is that they would have something every single level. I don't know if I'm going to go... I went through 4 other prestige classes, so I guess it would be kind of bad of me to miss this one out. We're not going to go too much into things like their spell casting or anything like that, but we will sort of go over some of the interesting abilities that they get. So the requirements for this are 8 ranks in heal, 5 ranks in knowledge religion, and 5 ranks in knowledge arcana, as well as the endurance and power attack feats. So that's actually a little bit more reasonable in terms of levels. So heal is a cleric skill. So a 5th level cleric would have basically would be able to do just about all of these things. Knowledge arcana might not be one of their strong points, but there are things you could take. Certain domains, I think, gave you knowledge arcana as a class skill. I'd have to look up the cleric skill list again to see if that was a class skill for them. If it wasn't, then that makes it a much higher thing for them, or harder thing for them to do, unless they were to multi-class, like have a level of wizard or something like that. So we got the Might of the Sacred Flame. So the Flame Steward infuses himself with the power of Sacred Flame, gains a +1 inherent bonus to strength and a +3 additional hit points, as if from the toughness feat at 1st level. At 3rd level, the inherent bonus increases to +2, and the Flame Steward gains an additional +3 hit points. At 5th level, it goes up to +3 with another +3 hit points. So 9 hit points total and +3 bonus to strength. At 7th level, it goes up to +4 to strength and another +3 hit points. So that'd be 12 hit points at 7th level. And at 9th level, they get a +5 overall. So the bonus to strength is cumulative. It's not like, or continuous, I guess I should say. It's not cumulative, it's continuous. So each time your increase goes up by 1, but it's not like you get +1 and then you get another +2 for +3 total. It would just go up to +5. The hit points, though, are cumulative, so they are +3 every single time. Then we've got the Sacred Fire Fan. So at 2nd level, a steward can emit a fan of flames, as a spell-like ability. This is exactly like the Burning Hands, except that half of the damage is divine power rather than simply fire. So even creatures resistant or immune to fire can still take damage to it, so that's kind of cool. Flames of Healing. So this one's kind of interesting. By calling upon the Sacred Flame, any cure spell cast by a Flame Steward cures an additional +1 hit point per hit die. So a Cure Moderate would get an additional 2 because it was 2d8 instead of 1d8. Cure Serious would be an additional +3 because it was 3d8, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of neat. Sacred Flame Strike. So at 6th level, the Flame Steward can call forth a column of flame from the sky. It's basically, yeah, it's the Flame Strike spell, which is half fire, half divine, and that's already an existing spell in the player's handbook. At 8th level, they get a Purging Flames. So once per day, a Flame Steward can call upon the Sacred Flame to cast one of the following spells: Heal, Restoration, Atonement, or Remove Curse as a spell-like ability. So Heal in 3.0 was actually pretty good. It was good in 3.5 as well. But in 3.0, you had Harm and Heal, and they were basically the exact opposite of each other. So the Heal spell would heal all of your hit points except like 1d4. So you'd roll a d4, and whatever you rolled, that was how many hit points below max you were. And the harm spell was kind of the opposite. You would basically lose all your hit points except for 1d4. So the combination of like harm and power word kill was really broken. In 3.5, it would actually change to be 10 points per level, per caster level. And you could basically only go up to like 150 points total. So it was like, it would cap at like 15th level. And the harm spell was the same thing. It was 10 points per level, but the harm spell could never reduce you below 1 hit point. So that's kind of how that works. So, you know, the heal spell is pretty good. Restoration is also really good. Atonement is actually a really good one to have as well if you had a paladin that lost their paladin abilities. And then we got Sacred Firestorm. Once per day as a spell-like ability, the 10th level Flame Steward can create a powerful storm of sacred flame. This works like the spell Firestorm, except half the damage is divine power rather than just fire. And so it can affect creatures that are immune or resistant to fire as well. So, yeah, again, kind of an interesting class, interesting concept. Foes of the Storm Weather. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these particular individuals, but we do have a high-level 20th level wizard here as one of the first ones, so that's interesting. Some new magic items. The Quarterstaff of Pain sounds pretty bad. +3 Quarterstaff cracks with eerie purple flames when wielded in combat. Those struck if failed a DC 20 will saving throw are paralyzed as if affected by hold monster for 9 rounds. Not bad. I'm not going to try to pronounce these names either because these are horribly, horribly difficult for me. But we've got the next one is a 7th level fighter, a 6th level aristocrat. Ossian Talander, 5th level aristocrat, 2nd level rogue. So you got that 20th level character and that kind of goes downhill from there. Information about a fighting treants. Some PC portraits. The forum. Did we miss Sage Advice or is there just not going to be... Okay, nope, there it is. All right, so yeah, with Sage Advice, I think I started this in like the last video or maybe like the last couple. I'm not going to go through everything that's in here, but I'm just going to look through some of the ones that look like they should be easier to answer and just test my knowledge of 3rd edition, give you what I think the answer should be, and then we will read the specific one. So let's take a look at... So we got... Would a spell like Magic Missile be subject to a mischance from a Displacer Beast? The Magic Missile description said it automatically hits target. Okay, so I haven't looked at the answer yet, but if I recall, mischances were only applied to things that made an actual attack roll. So Magic Missile would not be affected or shouldn't be affected by the mischance, but something like Melf's Acid Arrow would be because that was an attack roll. So let's see what we have here. Mischances of any kind don't apply to spells that don't require attack rolls. Okay, that's what I said. Let's see. Though in most cases you have to see the target to be able to aim the spell at it. A Displacer Beast gains a +2 resistance bonus to saves for spells that target them. but Magic Missile does not allow save. So yeah, so basically, yeah, Magic Missile, if you're fighting a Displacer Beast, Magic Missile is the way to go. Unlike 5th edition, though, a Displacer Beast always has that mischance in effect. So in 5th edition, if you hit a Displacer Beast, it loses the displacement ability, which just gives you disadvantage to attack. Like it loses that ability until the start of its next turn or something like that. In 3rd edition, it was just always active, unless you did something like Fairy Fire to outline the actual creature, or like something along those lines. But yeah, so we got that one at least. Let's see if we can find another one here. Let's move on to, let's see what we got on the next page. Okay, say a monster has a challenge. Oh god, challenge rating. I don't know if I want to go into this. Challenge rating of 5. How many 5th level characters should that be a challenge for? Okay, so challenge rating in the 3rd edition was supposed to be designed for a group of 4 characters. So a single challenge rating 5 creature would be an appropriate challenge for 4 5th level characters. So let's see what it says here. Yeah, the encounter would be effective for 4 5th level characters. The definition of challenge ratings is on. Okay, it just gives you the page reference for that. Let's see if we can find one more here. So why are there no templates for undead other than vampires, ghosts, and liches? What about ghouls, wraiths, and wights? Oh, it's not really a rule question, so I don't think I could really answer that. But I would just go out on a limb and assume that it's because the vampire and the lich and stuff like that, the Death Knight was another one, retained their knowledge, their memories, and their experiences, so they would still have access to their abilities. Whereas things even like ghouls, where they were more intelligent, they still had like a completely different mindset. Let's see what he actually says here. Victims transformed by these creatures lose their old identities. Okay, well, that's sort of what I said. And become standard examples of the creatures. Okay. Let's see if I can find just one more here. I'm looking for the shorter questions, only because a long question will demand a long answer. All right, so in my gaming group, we have come across the slam ability that is used by monsters, but have not been able to find print on what exactly a slam is. We assume it's attack with enough force to knock somebody down. If that's the case, what is the typical DC? Okay, no, a slam is just basically like a creature striking you with its fist or its paw, for example, if it doesn't have hands. It was just a normal bludgeoning melee attack using a part of the creature's body. It wasn't something where it's not like a body slam where you would be knocked on the ground or anything like that. So let's see what it says here. It's a blunt attack like a punch or a slap. Okay. A slam attack doesn't imply any sort of ability for knockdown. Opponents, if a creature has such an ability, it would be noted in the combat section. So yeah, so they had some creatures would have improved trip, where they could immediately, if they hit with their regular attack, they'd be able to make an immediate trip attack against you. So yeah, so we got that. So I'm doing pretty good so far, I have to say, on some of these. So like I said, I might do again. There's always other spin-off series of videos that I think would be kind of fun to do in the future. So actually, let's do one more here. Do piercing weapons cause 1/2 damage or no damage to skeletons? The player's handbook indicates the latter, but the monster manual indicates the former, as do some modules. I don't recall it ever saying that they were immune to piercing weapons, but a piercing weapon was less effective against a skeleton because it would essentially go between the bones. But a bludgeoning weapon was actually really effective against them. And for zombies, they were basically, if it wasn't a slashing weapon, then they would take less damage. But I think so it should apply. It should be half damage. Skeletons take half damage from piercing or slashing weapons. Later printings of the player's handbook no longer contain this error. Okay. Again, so kind of cool. But yeah, so like I said, there's always a spin-off series that I'd love to do. Some of them I'd love to go over the editorials, and I think it would be kind of cool to go through some of the sage advice issues, look at the questions, and again, just see if I actually know my 3rd edition or not. So I'm surprised so far that I've actually done all right. All right, and then just some more advertisements. The Pool of Radiance one is a little cheeky there. That's for a PC, I guess. And then we just have the 2001 Origins on the back. So yeah, that was the look at the issue number 283 from May of 2001. I know I focused a bit on the prestige classes. That was kind of the major thing. But honestly, the rest of the stuff wasn't all that what I was hoping it was going to be. The Pantheons, like that was cool. That was kind of designed or looped in with the designing your own deities thing. But you know, seeing like the explanations was okay, but they've been printed in all kinds of other materials, including the deities and demigods for third edition that would come out a little bit later on. So I wasn't really too interested in that. And the ultimate, like the gamer's ultimate guide to swords and cinema. I wish it was just like turning them into like magic items for the like for third edition D&D. I thought that might be kind of cool, but it's basically just like their top 10 favorite or like least favorite weapons in movies. So like I don't know. I don't know. Like it's interesting, but it's not what I was, like I said, it's not what I was hoping. Like I'd love to see like different swords just have like what their stats would be and give them a little bit of like knowledge and background. But it is what it is. So, you know, again, an interesting issue. Like I said, Dragon Magazine, I know that it used to be like one of the most like beloved magazines in the tabletop gaming industry. But I've got to be honest, I was always kind of meh when it came to a lot of Dragon magazines. And unfortunately, we're kind of in this era. I was always, like, when I started really getting into collecting Dungeon Magazine, this is one of the ones that I bought from a friend of mine when I picked up some of his collection. But yeah, just the Dragon magazines were like really hit or miss, and like this issue is one that I was really excited about when I pulled it off the shelf and saw the cover. Maybe not after seeing that guy's face. But you know, I was interested in in all the stuff that it had here, but just flipping through it, it wasn't what I was kind of hoping. So, prestige classes were cool. Some of them would get reprinted later. Others I have never seen before, and I don't think we'll see again. So yeah, anyway, it's still kind of neat though. So that was, like I said, look at the May 2001 issue of Dragon Magazine. And I'm pretty sure I have the June 2001 issue as well, but I'm not 100% on that. So I'm not going to say what the next installment's going to be, because I'll have to actually, you know, go and see what the next issue is that I actually own. Because like I said, these were ones that I bought from a friend of mine when he was sort of clearing stuff out when he was moving provinces. And a lot of these were, I think, just leftover stock from when he was running his own game store. So some of it was stuff that he had collected, but I think a lot of the other stuff was also just leftover inventory that he had in the store. So I can't guarantee that I've got like the entirety of 2001. But once we start getting into the issues that I myself began buying, then I will have all of the issues for each of the years until the final issue of Dragon Magazine. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoy doing this series. Just because, again, for me, it's been either years since the last time or decades since the last time I would have looked at some of these magazines, or in cases like this one, and even the last couple of installments, it was the first time I've ever actually opened up the magazine and looked inside any of the pages. So I really enjoying this series. We're also starting to get to the point where I can also do the Dungeon Crawl series, which is going through the Dungeon magazines. So when I get to that point, when I do the Dragon magazine for around the same point in time as the Dungeon magazine, then I will do a separate video for the Dungeon. There's going to be a short period of time where the Dungeon magazines that I own were bi-monthly, so they were releasing every other month. But we are going to start, that ends pretty quickly into my collection of Dungeon magazines. And then we'll be able to do the two series together. And like I said, there's always going to be some spin-off stuffs. I really do want to go into like a Sage Advice, series where just take a look at the different issues, read the questions, and then just try to give my answer first before I read the actual official answer. Anyway, thank you guys very much again. I appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.